Good evening to you, everybody joining as you are piling in. There is a very large audience for this Zoom meeting this evening. You're all very welcome. As I can hear the chimes of St Thomas's Church striking the hour here in Salisbury. Greetings from wherever you are. While everybody piles in, and it's just going to take a moment or two just because it's 200 and something people that are on the way, although some of them may join subsequently. Do use the chat for the moment just to say hello and where you're from so that we just get a sense of well, if nothing else, the geography of the audience for this evening. So you'll find the chat if you're they've changed Zoom a little bit recently, but there's a chat thing. For me, it's at the bottom of the screen. Sometime it's at the top if you're using it on a mobile device. But whatever kind of you're doing, it's really good to have you here. Oh, people, Sheffield, Cambridge. Okay, I can't read that fast enough, but maybe you can read the chat yourself and see where everyone's from. But it's like the sports report, David, isn't it? On a match of the day, but a bit quicker.
Well, Port Vale 3.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at that point, as we get a large number of people coming, it'll keep going. I will introduce first of all myself as I'm Hugh Morris. I'm director of the RSCM. If I haven't met you before, it's very nice to see you here. With me tonight on the call are two people who've been very involved with this project and over the next 60 minutes will be helping me to deliver this. It will be kept to an hour this evening. So I'm going to introduce first of all, and she's been having to multitask at this point because I'm going to ask her to do, she'll continue to let people in. So Sarah King, who's our Education Programmes Manager, is going to be manning the tech stuff in the background this evening, including grouping questions and things. But Sarah, I'm going to pass to you just to say a few words about housekeeping. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much indeed, Hugh. So just a few housekeeping notes as we get started. This meeting is being recorded and will be available for viewing again on our YouTube channel and indeed in our members area after the meeting. It will take a few days to become available and we will send around a link when it's ready for viewing together with a link to a summary document summarising the main points out of the meeting this evening. Hugh has already referred to the chat. Please use the chat to ask any questions. We may save some of them for the Q&A time we've got towards the end of the meeting rather than answer them immediately in written form, especially if there are some common themes emerging or if the topic is already planned to be covered later in the session. It would be really helpful if the chat could remain on the topic in hand rather than stray into other areas. Please keep yourself muted unless you're invited to speak to ensure that everybody can hear clearly. If you are invited to speak at any point, please remember that this is a public meeting and that your contribution needs to reflect that. Please also remember that this is being recorded and will be shared widely, so please do just be conscious of that in relation to any personal information that you share. And finally, please note that this session is only open to over 18s. That's all for the housekeeping. Hugh.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And I'm now going to pass just briefly to the third person who's going to be an active part of effectively of the panel here this evening. And so we welcome David Fawcett from his home in the fair land of Swanage, who's been instrumental in helping us set up the Young Voices Network and Toolkit, more of that later, and helping us design this programme. Good evening, David.
Good evening. It's great to be here with 153 participants. Wonderful.
And rising. And it's great that we've got such engagement, isn't it? As always, and we'll then start the presentation, just to say the RSCM, everything this evening is in the spirit of honesty, openness, and the spirit of the task in hand, actually. Thank you for your forbearance in doing it. And I would say, in doing it, there's a lot to be done here, so thank you for your patience. We are human, not superhuman. Despite our best efforts, there is a limit to what we can do all at one time. Now, I'm going to share a PowerPoint here. We're going to walk through this, and then there'll be some questions that we pick up as we go through the session. We're really excited to be here this evening and to be able to tell you about this choir project. It's a project which is in partnership with the Church of England. Hopefully, the slides over the next few minutes will give you a sense of what it's about and show how you can be a part of it. And at the end of the session, there'll be a link to a form so that we can keep you connected and we can learn a bit more about you and your interest in this. I'll say it now, this is the launch, but the project is yet to start. So it is going to take a bit of time to get it going. Have patience, we will get there. We're about to appoint a Deputy Director for Education, and they will be overseeing the work of this project leader and the others who will make this project come to life. You will see details of those roles being advertised very soon. We'll also be looking for an initial group of churches which will help us achieve the early outcomes of the project and what it's designed to demonstrate, and will in due course be sharing the key characteristics of what those will need to show. It's a bit like the word, I don't know if they still use it, but it's like the words they certainly used to use for the National Lottery. It could be you. And before we get into the detail of the project, just a little bit on the wider context. Why now? Well, this is one of the surveys that we've undertaken. Many churches with choirs currently have no children involved at all. And yet, these churches are often already equipped with the musical infrastructure, the leadership and the goodwill they need to reach young people if they're given the right encouragement, support and indeed vision. And we need to do it now because we need to help the church with tangible renewal. We need to encourage and support children and young people. We need to do it now because there's a real renewed interest in the breadth of the worship traditions of the Church of England. It's both and, not either or. And we need to do it now because 2027 is the RSCM centenary, and that's a catalyst. It's not too late to bring the church into growth mode with music as a significant driver, but if we wait, it might be. This is the work of the RSCM. It's simple, really. We're going to build a future by cherishing the past. Build a future, cherish the past. Now, we've been enabling the flourishing of church music for a long time, and we're looking to celebrate that centenary milestone with a clear sense of energy and direction for beginning century number 2. Some of the things we're about to start now have taken years of background to get ready. It's really a genuinely and exciting time. I've been in this role nearly 8 years now, and it's taken a long burn to build all of the things that need to get these happen. It may look like things have been moving slowly, but we really haven't been letting the grass go under our feet. Now, we're leading this project because we're working to make a difference at national scale, working with local churches. The investment, more on that later, has been planned for maximum impact and the return on the investment. Just to remind you, or tell you if you didn't know, that we're an independent charity, 99 years old, and we work internationally and nationally. We work across denominations, but we are the official music agency of the Church of England. By the way, some people have said, well, what about Wales or Scotland or Ireland? We want to do work in those places too, but of course, this is specifically a Church of England funded project, and the key's kind of in the name there. Now, briefly, the RSCM has 3 main activities. We do educating, and that part's pretty broad. Some of it's direct provision, some of it's indirect. So then there's a kind of link to the supporting and resourcing element. We've got thousands of member churches of all shapes and sizes across the UK and many more worldwide. They're part of a whole community which we're working to support. We're there for our members and more, but if you're not yet one of our members, now's a great time to come on board. And we're advocating for the power of music in worship in all styles, for the need to be a first thought in worship, and for the value of music as a tool for building churches and their connections to local communities. It's also a really special way, and this is a key part of the project, to open the doors and windows into personal encounters with the Christian faith. The choir project crosses all of these 3. We also have 3 priority groups to support young people. There's an obvious need for that. The second one goes hand in hand with it, music leadership, because we need to support the leadership that are there to support the young people. And clergy and indeed whole church leadership need to be fully committed for these projects to fly. And again, all 3 of these angles are addressed in the choir project. There's a synergy to it too. The Church of England the Vision and Strategy team have a mission to double the number of children and young active disciples in the Church of England by 2030. So they have a wish to grow the numbers of people. So do we. The RSCM wants to grow the numbers of children and young people. Absolutely, it's a passion of mine, but of the organisation as a whole. So it's a natural synergy. And it's taken several years of conversation and planning to go into the creation of this choir project, which we're introducing now. So here it is. It's a 3-year national programme introducing and nurturing 2,000 children and young people as active disciples in the worshipping life of the church. And that's through the creation or renewal of 200 choirs supported by 500 new volunteers. And I would say that I think it can actually reach many more than that. In my mind, 2,000 is just the start. We've been relatively cautious in our projections so that we make sure that we can be confident we can achieve it, but I think there's so much potential in this. Here's the basic theory of change. If we inspire and equip churches to recognise the potential of music ministry, and we give them the tools to realise it, and we work through effective communications and build and use strong diocesan partnerships, and if we train and resource and support clergy, musicians and lay teams to use music as a pathway to faith, while we provide tailored and ongoing mentoring and support, then we can make it that children and young people encounter Christ and the Christian faith through music, belong to their worshipping communities and grow as disciples, and of course as musicians. So the plan is that over 3 years we'll support at least 200 churches to establish or renew choirs for children and young people. We'll train 300 leaders. We'll engage 2,000 young people. And that will be through RSCM-led and mentored networks, and it'll be through diocesan partnerships to make sure that we're providing practical training to ensure sustainability and long-term growth. This is a long-burn thing. It's not a flash-in-the-pan initiative. It's also a two-pronged approach, so that there's going to be centrally driven initiatives and narratives and partnerships at local and diocesan level. And I want to make it really clear that it's not just about big, grand places. It's about ordinary churches everywhere. It's about people from all sorts of social situations. Indeed, music of this kind is a great social leveller, actually. It's about renewal and growth on a sustainable basis. Now, sometimes that takes time to establish. But what's really important is that the roots of it are firm and deep and will continue to be able to support things in the long term. What's involved then? There are 4 main elements. Number 1, training. Number 2, resources. Number 3, tailored support. And number 4, advocacy. I'll come back to each of those 4 things in just a minute. So what we're looking to do is to spearhead something where we create a bold commitment for the future. And that vision is for a church that sings again with children and young people at its heart. Joyful, prayerful, alive in faith. Now, of course, you could be saying, well, why hasn't that happened before? I don't know. I can't answer that question. What I can say is we're doing something about it now. It's a bit, okay, yes, when's the best time to plant an orchard? 30 years ago. But what I'm interested in is what we can do now and what we can do into the future. And that's where it's really exciting. So the sequence of change goes like this. We're going to inspire people to be part of it. Hopefully you'll go away from this evening thinking, yeah, this sounds really good. We're going to then equip people with the tools they need to be able to do things. We're going to then move into an activation sequence where we support churches to go through this, including this mentoring system. A little bit more about that in a minute. And we're going to sustain it in the long term. So you see on this slide that the idea is in year 3 there'll be 42 beacon churches, but that's part of this network that there'll be more than 200 churches that are being fostered and nurtured and supporting critically the thousands of young people. Now, there's a kind of 2-level approach to this. There's a national engagement and sort of strategy that will help us build the storytelling angle about it. We'll have a network engagement officer employed as part of this project. They're going to help us find and encourage and engage with the churches that are going to receive the support. And then we're going to use the buddy relationships between existing churches that are already some way down those churches and the new ones. So that it's a sort of, if you like, a church dating agency, and we'll group those people by, thanks to the wonders of electronic technology, it doesn't have to be geographical. We can find the people that are kind of resonating with what it is that you're trying to do. That's one of the things that a national organisation such as the RSCM is able to bring. The second strand is that we will be working through dioceses, working in partnership. There'll be an initial set that we've already got lined up to be doing things around this, and then there'll be more coming on board in due course. Let me take a little bit more of a look at the content. Number one, training confident leaders. So that's training courses and modules for musicians and clergy and ordinands and lay volunteers. We're planning things that will actually help. Things like self-certification online courses for things like recruiting singers, planning rehearsals, supporting inclusion, building partnerships with schools. For clergy, we'll be running sessions for the theological education institutions on the value of ministry of music. We're actually taking part very shortly at a symposium at Ripon College, Cuddesdon in March. And then also the kind of training that goes into IME2 sessions, where you're helping understand the parish application of this kind of concept and how you identify volunteers and build the partnerships. And then for the young people, those thousands of young people will also be supported to take new affirming certification, which will be joining our Singing Awards programme from late 2026. That's this year. Yep, it's coming now. The second strand is new and high quality resources to help churches ensure that their choirs nurture faith as well as musical skill. It's hand in hand. Voice for Life's been a key part of RSCM's resources for many years. We're now adding a new module, F for Faith, as we've internally called it. That's being written right now, and the resources are being trialled. Over the last couple of weekends, some of them have been field trials, and I'm looking forward to hearing some of the feedback. It's kind of back to the RSCM's motto of what we sing with our lips, we may believe in our hearts. These resources are designed to inspire that, using music as a touch point, and in a flexible way so that you could embed it into a choir practice as easily as you can, run it as separate sessions. And by the way, that picture there is of last summer's Bath course, where we give young people a really immersive week's experience. It's really moving to see how young people engage with the content, not just the singing. The third thing is tailored support to help churches act. And there'll be sessions to help and refine a parish vision and a plan for embedding it into activity in life. There'll be tailored support for all of the churches that will rise to 200 by 2028. There'll be a network engagement officer to do that. There'll be a structured support system, including diocesan linkages, and we'll link with churches that are already some way down this journey with those that aspire to do so. Those already that sort of flourishing at doing it will hail and celebrate them as beacon churches, and they will act as pathfinders for others following them. And fourthly, the RSCM will lead a national campaign to promote music as a vital tool for music and discipleship. In fact, slightly ironically, that picture was taken in New Zealand, which isn't so. It's an international picture, but it's exactly 2 years ago. That's where I was. But actually, it's a powerful kind of narrative wherever we do it. For too long, church music's been regarded as a specialist thing. And what we need to do is change the perception so that people have the confidence to invest in it right across the church. And so that campaign will include articles in media, contributions to Church Times and other platforms, and collaboration with the Growing Faith Foundation, particularly to amplify learning and success. We'll use social media, we'll use stories to show how the impact of this can work for churches and community life, and show churches what is actually possible. this is a kind of looks slightly complicated slide, but in summary, what it happens is there are 5 stages here. We supply inputs and we help coordinate things. That leads to things happening, activities. Oh, hang on, go back, sorry. I don't know why they did that, sorry. It leads to short-term outcomes, which then feed back to activities. That leads to some more medium-term outcomes. So it seems determined for me not to show that one. I'm sorry, there must be something set on that slide that means it wants to advance, where things like we encourage children, and for instance, to develop their sense of belonging and spiritual growth, and embed their own musical knowledge. And then there are longer outcomes as well. I'm going to not try going back on that slide one more time. I'll let it defeat me. Now, I don't know about you, people think in different ways. So some people look at the ground plan for a house, on a new house on a new housing estate, say, and they can imagine from looking at the plans what the rooms are going to look like and what the colour of the curtains might be, Others can get there if you add a grand designs sort of style walkthrough, the sort of simulation of what it's going to look like. But then there are others who, rather as Thomas, needs to kind of see it for themselves. And indeed, of course, on those housing estates, that's why they have show homes. So what I'm about to show are just indicative images. It's about the journey, using a bit of imagination, what this could mean for you. And we want you to be part of it, and we want you to feel excited by it. So this is a singing session in a school as part of our HIMPACT project. Choirs and singing in school are really important. Hang on, it seems to be auto-advancing again. It's great that the BBC is behind a new choirs campaign. Excellent. We all need to be in this together. It opens up the doors then to junior choirs in churches. Now, we're going to get many more people therefore singing in services. Whatever that might look in your local setting, and we'll be running more courses like this one that I happen to have a picture available to do. That was in Beverley last year, and we'll be doing that again this year, and we'll be looking to grow that number. One of the joys about church music is how it can support intergenerational relationships. So, David, I wonder if you could just, that was the young singers from St Mary's Swanage singing in Wells Cathedral. Sarah, if you can bring David on the screen as well now, maybe David, you can just say something about that.
Yes, in that photo that won't stick on the left, you would see 7 of my own choristers. They're the ones with the red folders, who I took to Wells Cathedral last Saturday to sing alongside RSEM Voices West. I remember the Voices choirs, or the Cathedral Singers choirs, from way back. Because I used to send choristers to them when I first started out. But in recent years, they've been adult only. So it was one of the things I was very keen to do when we started working together on ways of promoting getting more children and young people into choirs, was that the RSCM should open up its own choirs to children and young people. And here it is happening. Not only my choristers, but a group from the Church of the Holy Cross in Crediton in Devon. It was great to share the day with them and with the adults of RSEM Voices West. So the journey that got us there started post-COVID. Well, it actually started before COVID, but then everything stopped and started again. So I started growing a junior choir at St Mary's Swanage alongside our long-established, uninterrupted adult choral tradition in September 2021, when restrictions were lifted. And I built it out of work I'd been doing in the local primary school, because my daughter was at the primary school. And as soon as she started there, I started volunteering to help with music, playing for collective worship, and running singing groups and clubs. And by the time COVID was out of the way, my daughter and the cohort I'd been working with were old enough to start thinking about bringing them into contact with the church. So luckily we were able to use much the same sort of repertoire in collective worship in the school as we were using at church, or could use at church. So it was relatively easy to normalize the music that we wanted children to get used to, and to do it in the context of the school where it felt unthreatening and normal. And then relatively easy from there to create the pathways into opportunities in the church. We'd be able to say, well, this piece we've just learned, you enjoy singing so much, we'll be singing that on Sunday morning with my church choir. Why don't you come along? So we build events like that would pull them in. So by the end of the sort of first year, we had about 6 or 8 who were coming regularly and were starting to come on Friday evenings and sing on one Sunday morning a month. And as that group got more and more experienced, and the parents started to see the value of this in terms of music and faith formation and the social context, we involved them in more and more. We started involving them in a choral evensong once a month and in concerts, because I also ran the local choral society, so we provided platforms for that at the church. And really, it's built its own momentum now. Of course, you have to keep on recruiting. I still volunteer in the school. I'm there 2 or 3 times a week. I work with children. They know me. I'm able to say, well, you've reached the stage where you really ought to be coming on a Friday night, and you can get far more of this at church. And we pick up, 1 or 2 every term. Some stick, some don't, but we carry on recruiting. But the choir has now taken its own momentum, because when recently some new families moved to the area who were churchgoers, they looked around to see what churches there were, and they came to us because of what we were doing, because we had something meaningful, purposeful, and faith-based for children to do. We've got a structure now, and the whole church embraces this structure, so that it's not just about the music, it's about faith as well. It's not just about me, it's about the rest of the choir, but it's also about the youth workers. It's also about the clergy. It's also about new volunteers who've come on board to run a club immediately after the Friday night rehearsal, so that there's a room for discussion and fun and faith and everything. So that is the journey that we have taken. I now have 15 choristers after 4 years, and 7 of them were in Wells on Saturday.
Brilliant. Thank you, David. Now we can come back to some of that more. I'm actually just going to kind of keep you on there, because now my next slide, I fixed it while you've been on air, as it were, to make it that doesn't now keep sort of trying to sort of jump me all the time. Apologies for why those slides started having a mind of their own. David, maybe you could just briefly also talk about Young Voices toolkit. So before I've got some more things just to share in a minute, so let's just briefly touch on this Young Voices toolkit and what's already there that people, if they're thinking about this, can already engage with if they haven't found it.
Yes, absolutely. Well, a couple of years into the project of building in Swanage, I began to think, actually, this is possible. And I'm doing it, and I don't really get why other people aren't. But then I thought, well, yes, I do, because I didn't do this for many years, because I thought it was going to be too difficult. So you do have to break down barriers and perceptions. And that's why I worked together with the RSCM to produce the Young Voices Toolkit, which was meant to be, make the challenge manageable, have a 12-point plan of things that you will need to put in place or think about. So I think Sarah will probably put a link to the Young Voices Toolkit into the chat, because it's freely available to everyone. You don't even have to be an RSCM member to go and look at the toolkit. So this came out almost a year ago, and what we are now doing really builds on that foundation. We'll be populating it with more and more and richer content, particularly around faith, but also around other things that have emerged in the last year as areas that people want more information and more support on. So we'll be refreshing the content of the toolkit, and that will remain a very central resource to what we do in the choir project.
So that's the Young Voices Toolkit. Do take a look at it. Sarah put the link in the chat. Some of the stuff is absolutely there, some for everybody. Some things are in the members area that it takes you through to. If you're not a member, now's a great time to become one, because there's a surge of new things coming down the tracks. Do be a part of it. Just briefly, some other things just by context, and then a few reflections, and then we'll take it to questions. You may have seen that we also have Impact resources. Take a look on our RSCM website. These are materials to help with singing in schools and to bridge the gap to church. Some of them are new materials, specially developed. Some of it's traditional hymns reworked. Some of it's new words to old tunes. Each of the items has got teaching notes, music recordings, videos, PowerPoints, versions for choir and organ, versions for worship band. It's also got faith notes for each one, so you can unpack the meaning of the music. That could form the basis for an RE session, I should say, in a school, for our assembly, or even in a Sunday school session. As an example, we put together Impact Easter. We had Impact Christmas last term, but this time, obviously, it's Impact Easter, which includes all of those things. It also has teaching videos to show you how to do it. Do take a look at that resource. We also have Voice for Life. It's our long-established chorister training program. It's really comprehensive. There's an internal track, but there are also singing awards, and new, as I said earlier, for 2026 will be an easier access lower threshold certificate, which will link to the choir project, which will allow us to affirm new singers and give them a boost in their confidence and recognise progress and achievement at an early stage. Voice for Life also exists in a digital form via our RSCM hub that sits alongside the print versions. You can choose which version works best for you. We intend over the next period to offer some initial training days, freely accessible, to support music leaders at the start of this journey. Now, we'll be inviting expressions of interest in the form that you're going to be sent at the end of this session. Please take the time just to fill it in. It won't take you long. Now, the images on the screen here are just indicative. So that's just a range of people that I've chosen from things that we've done. The sessions will be open to adults of any age that are wanting to prepare for this work or are doing it already and want to improve. We're also intending to offer later in the year a more developed course for music leaders, likely to be across 4 Saturdays. Keep an eye on our information that comes out over the next few weeks and months. And this is all part of our growing program to support music leadership. We're actually going to do something that's tangibly going to help. Do keep a look on our website. We update it a lot. There's a lot to find, and make sure that you're signed up to our newsletter so you can kind of keep abreast of it, and our social media. You can also, and there will be a constant thread about this whole work, the whole choir project thing in CMQ, our membership magazine. That, of course, is a membership benefit, but I wonder if you've also, if you are a member, have you looked at the online enhanced version in the members area, which includes extra content that we can't fit into the printed one, and include links to our new, or relatively new, Sacred Sounds linked podcast, so that there's plenty of things to kind of engage you there. And before we go to questions, just some observations about this whole project. First of all, inclusion. Everyone can be part of this. Now that's from, whether it's from areas of social deprivation to areas of affluence, everyone's able to come in. You might have heard that Radio 4 picked up this story, and I was up with the larks on Sunday morning, and they shared the story of Hull Minster and the success that music's had in regrowing things there. And Mark is a shining example of what can be done. Well, I mean, he's a shining example of doing things, but it's the church that's a shining example of what can be done, I guess. We know that music can be a really great social leveller, and it can harness the talents of individuals that perhaps they don't see elsewhere in their lives, that isn't able to come to the fore. It's also tackles diversity, because we can make sure through this project that each of the choirs being set up actually is fully representative of all of our local communities. And again, look at it as a national picture, not just where you are. It's a grassroots initiative. There's a lot of talk at the moment, and it's welcome talk about the English choral tradition. There's work ongoing to apply to acquire cultural heritage status with UNESCO. cathedral music is a jewel in the crown. And I've personally been, before I did this role, I was a cathedral director of music. But of course, it's worth remembering that in the Church of England, there are 42 cathedrals and 16,000 parish churches. And what we need to be doing is filling as many of those as possible with song. Yes, the song of the people, the song of the congregations, but most especially the singing of young voices. Faith resources are really key to this. Conversations rooted in musical encounters, absolutely, that's a powerful, valid path to engaging with the life of the church and a personal journey of faith and discipleship. That's an integral part of the project. Variety. Nobody is telling you what's going to be right to get your choir to sing where you are, or when it's going to sing it. And that's going to vary from place to place. It might be evensong. Yeah, of course, great. But it might be morning prayer. It might be a mass. It might be all-age worship. It might be all of those things. And they're all good. And we should celebrate through this the rich diversity of the landscape of the worship of the rich, diverse landscape of the worship of the Church of England, and indeed the wider church itself. And it might be last on the list, but is absolutely not least important, just remember that embedding good safeguarding to all of this work is completely essential. And if you want a starting point about going, where do we do this? Don't worry. Take a look in the Young Voices Toolkit as a help, as a starting point. We've got other resources in our members area too, and there'll be more of that coming out as part of this whole junior choir work and some of the leadership modules that we're working on. Now, penultimately, before we get to the questions about the money, how do I get it? Well, good news and bad news. Lots of people have already made an assumption that this is a project which creates a fund to pay out. That isn't the project. So it's not, on its own terms, paying out to individual churches. What it is about is providing central tools. And if you look at it, actually, if you divide it out, and I know I've seen people have been doing the maths online, £2,000, if you gave that to each church, actually it would really soon disappear with no lasting impact. And the funding and the budgeting of this, by the way, has been very, very carefully worked through. So the value of the project comes from combining the inputs. What each church gets is access to training modules and the meetings and the resources and the support needed to set things up locally to succeed. If you don't have those things, there's no coherence and there's no movement. And that's the value add that a national organisation like the RCM can provide, and we will be doing. Now that support will extend, including guiding you to how to make a local financial plan, because that also is going to vary from place to place as what's needed, what's going to work, and how we can advise and support the applying to trusts and foundations and looking to other sources of funding that will make it come to life. We know, of course, we've talked about volunteers. There is a volunteer element. There's also the need to provide financial inputs of the right kind for the right local context. So what happens next? First of all, the launch. Now, as I said, we're announcing it really at this launch. Welcome to our launch party. Over the next period, we will recruit the project team. You'll see very soon adverts for the project leader and the network engagement officer. It'd be brilliant if you could help us advertise these really important roles. It might be you, or it might be someone you know. Keep an eye on our website and all of our comms around that. As we get them to start work, we'll be putting together the initial list of beacon churches and the churches that they're going to support. And we'll be continuing to build out the resources to support that. So that then when we move into the autumn and the new academic year, that the active project begins in earnest. So at that point, I'm going to stop sharing, and I've seen no sign of what's been going on in the chat in the meantime. Thank you all for your attention. I'm going to stop the screen share, and I'm going to bring Sarah back in, see if we've got some questions that we're going to need to pick up here in the 15 minutes. If you haven't put a question in the chat,
okay,
go for it now. Sarah, how are we doing?
Yes, we do have a few questions to start with. David, can we talk a little bit about volunteering and how that works?
Yes. I mean, my first thing to say, as Hugh has already said, there isn't one model. There isn't one size fits all. It will depend on what the situation is in your church. Do you have families in the church already? Do you need to go elsewhere to find them, or is your do you need to go outside? So there may be some need for volunteering. It's certainly the way that I've done it, and I understand that not everyone has free time for volunteering. But the whole one of the key things about doing this is it has to be a partnership, and it has to be something that your whole church wants and that your
100%.
whole church will prioritize. So we think of ourselves as church musicians very often as one-man bands, because that tends to be what we are. I'm lucky I've got another colleague in my music team, because I was brought on specifically to do this task with the junior choir. We have prioritized that role. And it may be what we're hoping and expecting is that when the whole church gets behind a project like this, it won't be just you. And there may be someone else who can go and do the legwork outside that needs to be done. And not all of it needs to be done in a way that you would do it as a choir leader in your church. Resources like Impact don't require a musical expert to take it into a school, maybe to get it set up, but somebody else could be trained, and the training that we're looking at providing could equip someone else in your team, somebody who does have a bit of time to go and work in a school. So don't think of it as just being yourself, having to slice yourself even in ever more slices in order to be able to achieve this. It's got to be a whole church effort, otherwise it won't work.
And if I can just build on that, David, I was in a meeting this morning with quite a diverse set of people, and they were talking about this whole thing about how do you get a community to engage and how do you get the volunteers to come forward. Well, it is because what doesn't work is just it's like it's sort of in other contexts you see it in sort of sometimes you assume that by paying someone, oh, that'll fix it. Now it might be that you do need to pay somebody somewhere along the lines to fix it, but just saying I'm paying you to do youth work and go do the youth work. Oh, we'll get loads of young people. That's not going to build the whole church buy-in that makes this work. And so there are many different ways of what volunteering looks like. There are many different profiles of what a volunteer can and should and might do. Again, they have to be done, the parameters around that, and there will be absolutely, of course, support and guidance for that. How do you safely recruit the volunteers? How do you make sure that they're working in appropriate ways? That's all part of what's coming. But don't forget that it isn't... there is resource out there. It's about how you connect and use it in the right ways, and showing people the value of it. And I think, David, I think it's the case, isn't it? And then maybe we should move to the next question. But people will back a winning horse, because once people see that there's something energy that's worth putting their time into, it's much easier to find the people that.
Absolutely.
That
I mean, that's been my experience. I've needed chaperones to make sure there's another person in the room with me when I'm working with choristers. That's at a simple level. 3 or 4 people came up straight away and said, yes, we'll do that. Yes, we needed to find cassocks. Yes, somebody found some cassocks. Someone donated. Somebody provided some money for music books. Somebody, a team of people said, well, we can adapt cassocks. We can sew them up. We can make you some surplices. And then, it's got to the point where the head teacher at the school in which I volunteer said, I'll drive your choristers to Wells on Saturday so that those without cars can take part. So it's exactly as Hugh says. If you're doing something that has real value and that people can see what an impact it's having, you will have volunteers. They will want to be involved in this success.
Let's move to another question. Thanks, David. Sarah, what else? Give us something else to pick up here.
So will there be outreach to churches to make them understand the value So this might be around financial planning and whether the finances will be found to fund a musician. But how are we going to support churches in understanding the value of what we're doing?
Do you want to go first, or should I go on that, David? So the short answer is yes. David, go for it. Go
on. And at all levels, as Hugh's already alluded to. So we're going to get in at ordinand level, so that as people are in training, they have put before them the idea that music as mission can be a real force for good and a real force for growth in church, which is a bit of a different story to what many churches have been told over the last 30, 40 years. So getting in at that level is terribly important, because it means that the next generation coming through will believe that story, half a chance. But also in the advocacy that we're doing and the partnerships that will be formed with dioceses, we're hoping to be able to get into a wide number of churches, make sure this is part of the sort of diocesan mindset as well, that churches that want to do this are doing a good thing and are feeding growth and should be supported at diocesan level.
Okay.
Good. Should we carry on for now?
Yes. So just, David, you mentioned diocese. A couple of questions around that. Which are we working with initially, and are the ones that we're working with initially going to be spread across all regions of the country?
Well, I'm not sure we can fully at this point. We have a list of target dioceses. I'm not sure we're going to be able to just name them all out here. I think that would be unfair. But there is a list, and yes, they are geographically diverse. David, I think we can say about one though, can't we?
Yes, Salisbury, which is my own diocese,
and ours here.
We've already got a very good dialogue going. Salisbury have had a number of meetings, a number of people getting involved, and we're starting to look in earnest about what that partnership could deliver.
Absolutely, and so because here we are based in Salisbury, and that's where I'm broadcasting to you from, as it were now. That is our home, so that is an obvious starting point. And we have, as David said, been working actively to develop those things. There are other dioceses we've got some other relationships with. We've also, as an example, I've been recently working, actually not least tied to our centenary plans, with Liverpool, the cathedral there, and their links to starting already a Young Voices network of choirs doing things in this space. So that's not a formal relationship yet with the diocese, but we've been building links. So that's just an example. There are others, and that will be coming, absolutely.
Can you say a little bit more about what a beacon church looks like? Can we define in some way what a beacon church might be?
Well, let's first of all just say that the formal definition of a beacon church will be shared in due course, and we will be making that visible and evident to people, so that there will be, we've actually got a draft of it. There is a sort of series of sort of criteria, but essentially it's where can we see that good things are happening in this space, so that people can turn and be inspired actually by good. And this is a scenario that works in other things. It works, it happens regularly, for instance, in schools, where there are partners between schools that are doing well in one particular thing, able to support people that are needing a bit more support and guidance or inspiration. So the definition is something's already happening. It's exemplifying the things that the project's looking to achieve, and is able to in some way support, which can actually be really simple, those that want to do more of it. And simple support can mean just come and see, come and talk. You can learn a lot by going to watch somebody else doing the thing that you're thinking that you might like to do. It sounds really obvious, but actually in the church we're quite bad at it, because everyone tends to be their own thing in their own place. So yeah, absolutely. So there are criteria for beacon churches. I'm sure there'll be lots of people to pick up.
Okay, next question.
Would I, just before you do that, Sarah, could I was just typing something, but I'll say it instead. I think the question of diocesan partnerships is stimulating more questions. I think an important point here is that your diocese does not have to have entered a formal partnership with the RSCM for you to access the support of the RSCM in this project. It would be wonderful if we had all dioceses signed up, but it will take time to go and talk to them and convince them that this is something they want to do. It would be lovely if your own diocese was in partnership and knew exactly what you were talking about when you went and asked them for support. But it doesn't stop you accessing the RSCM support.
No, that's what we talked about being a twin track thing. It's both and, not either or. Absolutely. Sarah, any more? We've got sort of about 5 minutes. Any more questions?
Yes, plenty. So somebody is asking about engagement with non-church schools. So this particular question is situated in a sort of significant cathedral city, only has non-church schools in the parish. How might you go about engaging with them?
Well, I think so. That's a good case in point of take a look in the Young Voices Toolkit for some advice about that, isn't it? But so it's about looking about the touch points and about how you can show people what you're doing and building something that the school isn't able to offer. And so just because the school is not a non-denominational doesn't mean that the entire school population is non-denominational or not interested in what can happen in the church. So it's about finding the ways to support the school where it is, to build the trust and the relationships, so that then you can kind of build it out from that. And finding, I mean, David, you've had a lot of experience of doing that, haven't you? But it's about, it fundamentally is about finding the touch points of relationships, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, and you need to tailor your approach depending on what the school is. So I now work in 3 local schools on a voluntary basis. The original one, I didn't say this, it was actually a Roman Catholic school. But most of the children at the school are not Roman Catholics, nor are most of the children at the school active Christians. But there's obviously in that school a real sort of, promotion of faith and acceptance of sung worship as being something that's, in the normal run of things. Another of the schools I work in is the C of E primary in the town. And there we're developing the relationship, but there isn't actually a strong corporate worship tradition in that school, so I've had to take a different approach. And then I work with a secondary school which has absolutely no worship element whatsoever and doesn't want one. And there I'm using the approach of using very different types of music, but a range of music. And I told them we will be doing folk and pop and rock and shanty and worship music and this and that. So it will come into the mix. If you put something into the mix and you can still normalize it, and if you cultivate the love of singing and of singing well, whatever you sing, sing it well. If you can cultivate that, then you are sowing the seeds and creating those pathways into your church work.
Absolutely, and of course, in that it is about reading the runes really, because if in that instance, if you go into the head teacher's study and say, right, okay, well, I need to get, I'm going to start young disciples in the church choir. You're probably not going to get very far. It's about meeting people where they are and building those connections in those.
And also about finding out what they want, what do they need. Schools, yeah. I've found in my experience, really get this, really understand that they cannot give all the musical opportunities to young people that they would like to, and if someone comes along willing to help them to do so, and also to create further opportunities outside the school walls, they're more than happy usually to accept.
Sarah, we've got time for perhaps one more, and then we are at the next steps point.
Yeah, so there's a couple of questions around joining together. Can this be groups of local churches coming together to do this? And I think possibly a sort of related question perhaps is are there more opportunities to bring groups of children together, sort of come and sing events and that sort of thing?
So dealing with the second one first, absolutely in our plan, and it's in our education strategy. You could look that up. I think that document's on the website. If not, then we can share it. It's fine, or elements of it at least. We absolutely have a plan to be able to provide in kind of wrap around to this whole project opportunities for young people to come together and sing, because that's one of the ways that you can kind of build enjoyment and engagement and feel that you're not alone doing it. That's really powerful. There was a part before that about churches working together. Well, look, if you take my own church back in Derbyshire, we have a church's visioning away day in 10 days time, which is looking about how can the 6 churches of the benefice work better together, and so if that involves churches working together to do this kind of work with young people, well, yeah, isn't that a good thing? I can't see that that's a problem.
Yeah, and indeed, I'm currently thinking about a local project bringing together any churches in our little sub-region who want to do this, and maybe together putting in a bid for some strategic funding, maybe to get another pair of boots on the ground to go and get into more schools, and find some churches to link up with who will provide the pathways into meaningful activities in the church.
Now, we did promise we'd finish at 8 o'clock. I can see there's lots of stuff going on in the chat. Thank you everybody for your contributions. Take heart. There's a lot of people here. There's a lot of people with a passion for this. A lot of people, of course, don't feel downhearted if you think we can't do that yet. And just remember, this is the start of a journey. It's the start of or at least the acceleration of a trend and a movement and a wish. As I said, the RSCM is doing this with all sincere intent. We can't do everything right now. We can't do everything tomorrow. The project can't start until we've got some staff actually ready to do it. We've got all of the blueprints all ready to go, but so we'll get there. We would encourage you to stay part of the journey. I can just see a chat. The 12-point plan, look at the Young Voices Toolkit on the website. It's all there. Just type Young Voices Toolkit or put on the Learn With Us bit at the top. It takes you straight there. That's an
Sarah's just put the link in again.
There we are. Thank you very much, Sarah. But so stay in touch. If you're not sure, reach out. There's a acquireproject@rscm.com email address. So to stay in touch. And please do, as we finish, spend just a moment. Sarah's going to send you a link. Is that what happens? Yeah. Click on it to just complete the details. It encourages you to say, how might you think where are you on the journey so far? Who are you? So that we can just learn a bit more and find out again for things like that music training sessions that we're going to offer. We just need to know what the geographical appetite for those is in different places, because that will help us place them in places that can reasonably got to. I hope you're going away encouraged. Don't don't fret, and do stay in touch. I would really like to thank David for being part of the conversation this morning.
Evening.
This evening. Yeah, evening.
Yes. Great to be here.
And also for Sarah for staying at her desk for a long time to be able to facilitate this. She's had a long day, as in fact have I. So I think it's time for my tea. Thank you all for your participation. Good wishes to you all. There'll be more sessions and things in due course, but for this evening, thank you. God bless you in your work, and we'll see you again soon. Good night.